The town of Plainville. Established in 1721 at the geographical center of Connecticut.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our town council meeting. This evening is Monday, June 3rd, 2019, 7 p.m. If you'll please stand for the pledge, I'll have Councilman Cox lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have something to add to our agenda, so if we can do that first.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to add executive session for a matter of litigation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Just getting it on my sheet so I don't skip it later. Okay. We do not have any presentations or public hearing this evening, so I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the May 20th meeting.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes of May 20, 2019 regular meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Announcements and reports. Do we have any of those tonight from anybody?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I had the pleasure last Friday, May 31st, of attending the Senior Center sponsored volunteer brunch at New Trees. It was a wonderful event. The goal of it is to honor and celebrate all of their volunteers and all the hours that they contribute. And it was a lot of fun and a very special event. And just some statistics that are very impressive. They have over 300 volunteers. In 1 year, they volunteered for over 14,000 hours, which would be the equivalent of 7.5 staff members. So it's a wonderful program with a lot of people supporting it there. And our town manager, Robert Lee, was also there.
Great. Does anybody else have anything for us? I don't have anything particularly, but I would like to commend our buildings and ground and road crew. If you could pass on our thanks for the wonderful job they did preparing our town for the Memorial Day celebration. They certainly always go out of their way. The flags were in place. The streets looked very well groomed. Particularly Veterans Park, where there's a culminating ceremony at the end of the parade. So if you could please pass on our thanks to the appropriate people. It is recognized, and often we look at things and say how nice, but it's always nice to make sure we pass those that gratitude on to the people that make it happen. So please thank them. I also would like to thank Dan Hurley. He was the chairperson of the Memorial Day Parade again. Dan had done this for many, many, many years and stepped away for a couple of years and returned last year. And he was also the chairman this year. And I understand he's going to be stepping away and turning his duties over to Dave Dudek next year. So I would like to, if it's all right with the council, to recognize Dan at the council meeting, perhaps our June, the next meeting, with a proclamation thanking him. He's been doing this for a number of years and always he's done it happily, and he keeps everybody moving and keeps us all on track. So if we could do something to thank him for us, I would appreciate that.
Yes, we can do that, as well as I know that the students are scheduled to come to the meeting, the next meeting, and also read their essays that they read on the day of the Memorial Day as well. So,
that'd be wonderful. Then we could do them both at the same
both.
time.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no other announcements and reports, we'll move on to appointments and resignations. I don't think we have any appointments this evening unless anybody has one from one of their assignments that has to be reappointed. Nope. We're moving through it here. Okay, report of the town attorney. Attorney Mastriani, hello.
I do not have a report for today.
Okay, thank you. All right. Report of the town manager, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. I do have several items that I'd like to go over. First one is road bond discussion, what I'm calling Phase 2. The 5-year, $5 million road bond program is in its final stages of completion. Town staff has received many positive comments from residents regarding the repaving of their roads, some of which had not been done for over 30 years. Town staff is recommending that the town council consider another appropriation of $5 million for Phase 2 of the program. A list of the potential local roads was included in your meeting information package. Also included was the town's updated debt service schedule. The debt service schedule will be declining by almost $1.73 million by fiscal year 23, which is 4 years from now. And financing could be accomplished without increasing the current line item amount that we have at $4.4 million. And I think I also gave you hard copies of that this evening as well. The town council desires to move forward with Phase 2. It is possible to have it voted upon on the November 5th ballot. The deadline date for putting the question on the November ballot is September 5th. If we were to proceed with that, if the council wanted us to proceed forward, town staff would schedule a public hearing. We would talk to bond council about putting together a bond authorization, which would be considered by the council, have a public hearing, and then you'd make a decision about whether you wanted to put that on the November ballot. So I don't know if you have anything you want to talk about this evening with regards to that, or wait till the next meeting.
Okay.
When you're ready to give me some feedback on how you'd like to proceed, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay. Next item I have is fourth quarter transfers and additional appropriations. The finance department is preparing the additional appropriations and transfers to close out fiscal year 19. Additional appropriations are expected to be in the $300,000 range, with $250,000 estimated for police overtime and $40,000 for pension contributions. You may recall that we decided to do some additional appropriations towards pension. That decision was made during the fiscal year 20 budget process. Transfers are expected to cover most, if not all, of the other line item overages. At least that's the way it looks like at this point in time. There is an item under new business that would set the public hearing on the additional appropriations and transfers for the June 17th town council meeting. And I anticipate being able to get all of that language to the town council in advance of the meeting, as well as being able to post that as well.
Okay.
Next item I have is the revenue collector suspense list. The revenue collector has submitted the suspense list for fiscal year 19 for town council consideration. The suspense list totals $683,282.02 and consists of real estate in the amount of $584,117.76, motor vehicles in the amount of $60,827.52, personal property in the amount of $32,505.41, and what is known as deceased motor vehicles. It's not the motor vehicles that are deceased, it is the people who own the motor vehicles, apparently, in the amount of $5,831.33. Suspending these accounts does not preclude efforts to collect these delinquent taxes. The motor vehicles and personal property accounts will be sent to a collection agency for follow-up. Two properties make up 95% of the real estate suspense amounts. So while it may appear that the real estate accounts seem high, two accounts make up 95% of that, namely the White Oak Construction property, which we're working with White Oak Construction next door. That amount is $426,833.37. And the Schultz Salvage property, which totals $126,473.06. The other real estate properties deal with trailers that have disappeared over time that were in a trailer park, and a couple of streets that are paper streets that we're trying to clear up as well. So we hope to have them written off. We don't anticipate that we're going to be collecting the majority of those taxes going forward. And so we asked that they, at least the real estate ones, we asked that they be put on the suspense list for the time being. And there is an item under new business regarding the suspense list. All right. Next item I have is the summer meeting schedule. The Town Council historically has held only one regular meeting during the summer months of July, August, and September. Town staff is recommending that the first meeting of those 3 months be canceled, namely July 1st, August 5th, and September 3rd. Special meetings could be held if necessary. If there are no objections, town staff will make the appropriate notifications regarding the cancellation of these meetings.
Okay.
Okay. Next item I have is budget update. The legislature is currently debating the proposed state budget as we speak. I was watching it on TV just a few minutes ago, with the hopes of passing it by the end of the session on Wednesday. There are two, what I'm calling good news items in the proposed package. Probably a lot of bad news items in the package as well, but I'm going to mention two good news items with respect to Plainville. The first one is that no teachers' retirement contributions from the municipalities in fiscal year 20. I'm not quite sure about fiscal year 21. And Plainville's ECS amount is expected to be $16,166 higher than what is in the current fiscal year 20 estimate. Rob Buden and I met with Dr. Maureen Brummett and Sam Adlerstein to discuss some issues relating to the fiscal year 20 budget as well. The first item we discussed was the capital improvement budget. As you may recall, the CIP anticipated grants of $1,786,000 to support the CIP budget. This number included $1.6 million for the Town Line Road project, $56,000 for the senior van. That's, we're expecting it, you know, if we got the grant, it'd be the 80% grant, 20% local match, so 80% of that line item, 70,000 was at 56, and $130,000 for a school security grant application that had previously been submitted. Unfortunately, the school security grant did not come through for Plainville. This means that the current CIP budget has a projected revenue deficit for next year. To keep the CIP budget whole, I'm recommending that the Town Council consider a transfer of $107,000 from the teacher's retirement, assuming that the budget gets approved and the teacher's retirement is not included. That line item could be transferred to the CIP budget at some future date to be determined. Additionally, in order to close the remaining revenue gap of $23,000 to make up the $130,000 shortfall in revenue, I am recommending an additional appropriation from the unassigned fund balance be considered as well. Not this evening, but at some future date, once everything is completed as far as the state budget is concerned. Transfers and additional appropriations could be done at any time. It could be done in the next fiscal year. It doesn't have to be done before the end of the current fiscal year. Dr. Brummett also updated us on the Board of Education special meeting that was held last week to finalize their budget for fiscal year 20. The board discussed realized savings in the current fiscal year. Dr. Brummett informed me that the board decided to use $65,000 in realized savings in the current fiscal year, which is fiscal year 19, to prepay for the diesel fuel contract. The prepayment would result in a 1.5% discount as well, according to their existing diesel contract. Dr. Brummett pointed out that this savings in the 2019 budget in the current year would allow for the BOE to put the behavior tech position at the Plainville High School back in their budget for next year and make the literacy tutor full-time at Wheeler, as well as cover the cost of their benefits. These are some line items that were reduced in their budget as a result of the council's reduction after the first budget was defeated. She went on to say that should additional 2018-2019 savings remain, the Board of Education elected to prepay legal fees in the amount of $40,000 and fund $25,000 for the design of a secure entrance at the Plainville High School that was removed from the capital plan. That's if further realized savings are realized. I would point out that the board has the authority to expend dollars as they choose. And if they have dollars that they're prepaying in the current fiscal year, that loosens up some monies for next fiscal year. That's under their purview to to make those changes as they determine.
So, Robert, can I ask a question before we continue on about that specific? So the Board of Ed in their current fiscal year has $130,000 they don't anticipate spending, correct, in this current year?
I didn't hear it.
65,000 for certain, and then potentially another 65,000. Is that right?
Well, potentially, but those have not been realized as yet. That's correct.
Right, but it's a possibility. Is that what they're saying?
Yes.
Definitely.
Definitely the first 65,000.
Definitely 65,000.
Right.
And then there's a potential for another 65,000, which would be $130,000 in the current year.
Right. Normally, those dollars could be returned to the town at the end of the year if they didn't use it. That's correct. And I would point out that they had 65,000. They had for diesel fuel next year. They had at least $65,000 budgeted for diesel fuel, and they're going to prepay some of that on account, get a 1.5% discount, which loosens up $65,000 that they could spend in next year's budget.
So I guess my question is this, in terms of accounting process. So we're using dollars in this year to pay for expenditures for next year. Is that what the proposal is? Is that
Yes.
that the appropriate accounting procedure? Because I know the town doesn't do that. We have to at June 30th, we have some accruals or whatever that do get processed after June 30th. But do we take money from the current year to pay for expenses in the next year? Are we allowed to do that?
We have not. We've talked about doing it with the pension, making a pension payment this year with some dollars that we, I'm trying to remember the source of that. It had to do with the EDA. We're taking some money back from the Economic Development Agency's, loan program that the town had appropriated, and they had excess, they had more than enough funds to, that they needed for the next, which was projected for the next several years. So we realized back some monies from the EDA fund, which the council indicated that we would use some of those for paying some of the pension costs that we projected.
That's for next year.
For next year.
For next year. Right.
And the board has historically over the last several years done this, prepaid for some legal fees that they were anticipating. So it's not a new thing that the board has done this over the last several years, generally in consultation with the town council.
Our auditors are okay with doing that, taking funds from one fiscal year and applying them to expenditures to the subsequent fiscal year. It's hard to keep track once you start mixing one year to the next, and then there's probably encumbrances now from last year that are out there, and then we have the current year, and then next year we also have some encumbrances following over. Then we're using funds from this year to pay to next year. It gets cumbersome, and I'm just asking if this is, I know this has been done, but my question is this appropriate fiscal management in terms of what our auditors are looking at? Do they have any issues with this, using funds from one year to the next?
They haven't mentioned anything in the audit. Certainly we could ask them that specific question to see if they have any concerns with respect to that. I'm pretty sure that this type of budgeting is not unique to Plainville. Perhaps
not, but I'm just interested in knowing if there's accounting principles when our auditors come through and look at all of both sides, both the board and the town side, that we have to adhere to certain accounting standards and principles, and I would be interested to know if that's something that they don't have an issue with, because I don't know that I've ever asked the auditors if it's something they're okay with.
Yep, we could certainly.
And because it's done,
it's
done. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that should continue to happen. And the issue is, again, you are transferring monies. We're dealing with one fiscal year. We're in the current year, and then we're taking monies from the current year and moving them to the following year. It just gets very muddled, which is why, as you and I talked this afternoon about the capital, it does become difficult to track things.
It does, and that makes certainly our
That's why we have
administrative job's a little bit more difficult, for sure.
That's why we have an audit every year.
Well, and that's, I think, something that I'd like to make sure I understand, because I'm the one that votes on these budgets, and I vote to put them out to the public. And if I can't explain it to myself, how can I explain it to the public that's going to vote on it?
Well, and I think that, and hopefully, most people understand that that a budget, at least the Board of Education's budget, is a lump sum dollar amount that they have the ability to,
Right.
they have the ability to say, hey, this is our plan to spend it, at least for next year, and if they can make any changes that they want, during the fiscal year without coming back to the town council. Your question, of course, is different,
Yes,
which
it
is using some dollars in advance in one fiscal year for presumably use in the following fiscal year, and I certainly will consult with them regarding that, but. That's.
It is different. I know that the board is a department of the town, if you will, such as all the other departments. And once their funding is voted upon, they can certainly spend it as they see they should. But that's not my question, as you know. It has to do with these funds being moved from one fiscal year to the next and applied to different items. That, is that appropriate?
Well, the issue is, can you prepay for the following fiscal year?
It is.
You're not moving funds from one year to the next. What you're doing is you're prepaying funds, that is going to be spent in the following fiscal year. And I know in past years, and it's been a while, we've had some discussions with the auditors about it. I don't recall exactly what they said, but I will get an answer.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Not a problem. If there's nothing more on that, I'd like to turn it over to Scott for happenings, and then make both of us available for any further questions you might have on any of the items that I've reported on. So.
Good evening.
Hi, Scott.
The first department I'm going to report happenings on is the Senior Center. They are holding a program Thursday, June 6th at 10 a.m. On how to fall safely. Sometimes there's no way to avoid a fall. At least if you're aware of the inevitability of a fall, you can prepare yourself to fall properly. Learn how to fall the correct way, forwards or backwards, and get details on how to fall safely to reduce the risk or lessen the severity of an injury. This program will be held at the Plainville Senior Center and is free. Thursday, June 13th at 1 p.m., they're having a program on what is a stroke, and knowing the signs and symptoms of a stroke can save your life or the life of a loved one. Be ready to act and see someone experiencing signs and symptoms of a stroke. You'll learn what a stroke is, risk factors, stroke prevention, how the stroke recovery process works, and this program is being presented by Dr. Katerina Caraco, neurologist at Bristol Hospital. The Plainville 150th celebration that is coming up Saturday, July 20th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They're having a walking tour as well as a bus tour through the historic sites. Maps and buses will be available at the Municipal Center. And on Sunday, July 21st from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m., there's going to be a family picnic at Norton Park. Feel free to bring your chairs, blankets, and any food. There'll also be live music, food trucks, games, and historic displays available. The 150th committee will also be offering a custom-designed 1 troy ounce .999 fine silver heirloom quality commemorative coin to celebrate the Plainville sesquicentennial anniversary. One side of the coin will have Celebrate Plainville, Connecticut, 1869 to 2019. The other side will have the Liberty Torch, along with the silver weight and content. There will be a limited production by the Silvertown Mint. Individuals can purchase these at a price of $35 each. For more information on any of the events, or if you're interested in volunteering or purchasing a commemorative coin, please visit the Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Plainville150th, or send an email to plainville150th@gmail.com. Over at the Public Works Department, they just want to pass on that the Spring Bulk Collection is still taking place now through June 24th. Residents who currently have curbside rubbish will be able to have a bulk collection, one per calendar year. Eligible residents are able to call CWPM at 860-793-6721 to schedule a pickup. And when calling, they just need to provide their name, address, a phone number, and a complete description of the items to be collected. And as long as they call by Friday by 3 p.m., they're able to have their pickup for that following Monday. The town clerk would like to remind residents that June is dog licensing month. And lastly, moving on to the Recreation Department, the burner pool is now open. Weekdays from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and weekends from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. For more information on pool passes, along with any of the other summer programs, please visit the Recreation Department's webpage on the town's website.
Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any questions for either Mr. Lee or for Scott with their report?
I just have one quick question for
Sure.
on the road bond. In this debt service analysis, like when would you start spending money on the roads? I mean, if it went this November, I know you have it here for fiscal year '23 as the first year payment.
We would begin next season.
Next season, okay.
Next season, yes. We would probably do some temporary borrowing to get out to that year, or, something along those lines.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a question for the town manager. On the
course.
suspense list, the personal property and the motor vehicle taxes that are going to a collection agency, typically, do we get any return when it's sent to a collection agency?
Oh, yes.
We do, it does,
Yeah, they're pretty aggressive.
pretty aggressive?
I mean, there's been several notices sent to taxpayers. Some of them are, you got to track them down. You may notice a name or two that you say, well, I know that name looks familiar, but
There were a couple of business names, yeah.
yeah, the personal property is difficult because the only other option is to go in and seize the property.
Yeah. But they do get some results.
They do get some results, yes.
We get something it's somewhat significant percentage of that collected. Excellent. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the town
Madam
manager?
Chair, just one quick question. Back to the debt service capacity
Yes.
spreadsheet. Does that include like the middle school, things that we anticipate coming up, or is this strictly what we have on the books now and adding the items you added?
Yeah, in the green section below, that gives you an idea how much is available for the middle school.
Okay. Thank you.
It did lower the number from the last one because of an error that I had made in projecting the road bond.
Yep, no problem. I just
Over
want to
the
know
period of
that
years.
some of,
Yep.
what was in there exactly. Thank
Yep.
you.
Any other questions for the town manager? So regarding all this information you gave us about the capital improvement project and plan and changes, and we've got a new spreadsheet from the Board of Education. The grant that was expected to come in for the security
Yes.
that school did not get was for the amount of,
Well, we were looking to apply $130,000 of the grant to next year's capital improvement plan. They were seeking a grant somewhere in the area of, I believe it was, in excess of $200,000 when they applied for the grant. And it was, and that was for items that they had previously spent on school security issues, as I understand it.
okay. So we included $130,000 as revenue. Is that why we're having this shortfall? We included
Yes.
130 before we got it. We expected to get it, but we hadn't gotten it when we put our budget together, correct?
We were hoping to get it, and I did report to the council that it was something that we were unsure of whether we were going to receive it or not at the time.
So, okay. That's all I wanted to know. Thanks. Does anybody else have any questions? Are we going to discuss this at our next meeting in terms of what's the deadline for when we have to make some of these decisions regarding the capital?
Well, the expenditure
one?
amounts are out there, have been authorized. At some point in time, as these projects move forward,
Well, they haven't been spent yet, right? Not till July 1st.
right, but they're authorized, right,
Okay.
right. So, at some point in time, if those projects go forward as planned, so at some point in time, we're going to need another $130,000 to make up it, assuming that they come in at the budgeted amount. There may be some of them that come in a little bit lower than what it was anticipated or budgeted. There may be some that come in a little bit higher. So, we won't know that until we actually go out and the town and the board purchases, these particular items.
Okay, so we got this spreadsheet from the Board of Education, and trying to tie it back to what we looked at when we did our budget review,
Yes?
for which we approved the total amount of capital of $800,000. And I'm looking at the board's new recommended changes, and there's, just to be clear, there's a $29,387 amount. I assume that's because it's going to exceed their $310,000.
Right, based upon the list they
That
have
says
there.
it's needed from other sources. What does that mean?
That means they're either going to have to, they know what they have to spend, and so they either have to stick to that amount or find other sources, which may include coming to the town council.
So at this point in time, we've approved $310,473 in that general vicinity for them, correct?
Nope, that exact amount.
And they can't exceed that.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions about this? I know we just got this information today. There's a lot to look at. So maybe at our next meeting, we can do a little bit, I don't know if we want to do a little work session before, or spend a little extra time on that so we can all understand where we're going to end up.
That's
Sounds
fine.
good, and perhaps we could ask
Yeah.
Dr. Brummer to attend as well.
Yeah, I think some more discussion needs to happen.
I think there,
Because I got to try to
yeah,
remember.
I think we need some, I think we need to do some talking about this because there's changes that were made since the budget was voted on by not just the town council, but the town. So we need to know where we're going with it. So perhaps, I don't think we're going to need an hour, but at least 30 minutes to talk about that. Is that okay for our next meeting in June? Okay? Great. Okay.
Will do.
All right. Any other questions or comments for the town manager? Seeing that I made all of them. Okay. Thank you. Thank you both. We'll move on.
You're welcome.
Next item on our agenda is public comments section. During this time, we invite the public to come to either podium. Please state your name and address. You will be given 3 minutes to speak to the council. The first person on the list is Catherine Labella. Catherine?
Catherine Labella, 50 Pierce Street. At the last town council meeting, I spoke with you about a biker incident that occurred on Thursday, May 16th at the Central Cafe. Since that time, additional information about the incident and at least 2 prior occurrences has been highlighted in news articles and in Department of Consumer Protection Liquor Commission suspension notice to the establishment. I said before that I greatly appreciated the police presence at the time of the incident. I also appreciate the subsequent work by Chief Catania to ensure that the Department of Consumer Protection was aware of the seriousness of the incident. However, after further reading about it, I find it unconscionable that Pierce Street residents and residents in the surrounding area were not notified of the situation through the new red alert system. According to information in the suspension, Chief Catania wrote a letter to the director of the Liquor Control Commission describing the May 16th incidents as volatile and dangerous. According to the notice, he also wrote a memo to the town manager through which, in part, he highlighted the broad-ranging danger these types of motorcycle fights create, and further went on to say, this type of activity presents a very real danger to the involved parties, the police, but even more so to the innocent people who happen to be walking, driving by when the mass exodus occurs. My family was walking in the vicinity when this happened. Unfortunately, I am currently of the belief that because half of Pierce Street is in the central commercial zone, it is not considered to be the residential neighborhood that it actually is. Therefore, traffic can be routed down this small street at the town's convenience. Trails that split the neighborhood can be developed, and protection of the residents during violent and dangerous situations can be ignored. Because of this, and out of courtesy to the council, I am alerting you that I will be submitting a Freedom of Information request about these incidents, along with this statement tonight. I respectfully request that this statement become part of the public record, along with the council minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Nope. Okay. Oh, the hands go up. Who would like to go first? John?
John Kislick, 65 Forestville Avenue. Just two things. On this public hearing coming up for fourth quarter transfers and additional appropriations, will everything be spelled out to us so we know which is which? I got kind of confused with the town manager was saying today. Transfers to the police department, I always thought we always did those, but are those considered additional appropriations? I'm a little confused. I'd like to know just what items are considered additional appropriations and which is.
Right.
I hope we can have that to the public.
We will have a list. Typically, every year when we do this, we get the department from which the funds are coming and the department to which they are going. And if that is insufficient to cover that total amount, then we will have to do an appropriation from our fund balance. So we will have all of that at our next meeting, correct? That'll be available to us before the public hearing. So, yes, we do that every year.
The next thing I have is what you were talking about, Chairwoman Puglisi, about spending money from this year's budget to next year. And I agree with you, and I think there's something wrong with that. When the taxpayers go out and vote on that budget, we are voting on that budget for this fiscal year. And I think it should be illegal to take money from this year and spend it on next year. And I've listened to that young lady who does our financial report, and she has a lot of things that she says, we do not make any determination on that. They make determinations on if all the dollars and cents add up where they went. And I think this is one of the things, you know, I didn't really realize they're doing this stuff. I think this is wrong, and this is something that this town should stop, in my opinion. We vote for what's going to be spent this year, and to take it and put it in next year, my opinion is completely wrong. I hope we stop it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Anybody else? Roberta?
Roberta Loria, 18 Perrin Road. For the benefit of Carol and the town council minutes this evening, I would like to say that I oppose any trails or alignment that will be on, next to, or have an impact on any neighborhood in Plainville, especially Perrin Road, where it will be inches from residents' backyards. I guess this evening, the question that needs to be asked is, what part of I told you so do you want to hear about first? Many people came up here to this podium and talked to you about safety. The incident on May 16th should be looked at very seriously. Not only was the fact that according to the Department of Protection Liquor Control Commission letter mentioning that there were 2 other similar incidents, you must also look at the fact that this brawl occurred right next to the proposed trail. Had the trail been there, you and I both know that it would have been very easy for some, if not many, of these motorcycles to escape this way and make it dangerous for the families and properties that this trail is being forced on. The police made it clear they needed help, and the emergency phone system was not used. This was an absolute fiasco and an embarrassment to this town. There should be a minimum of an unbiased investigation that should be done by the State Attorney General's office or the state police. Not long ago, a resident came up here and mentioned that maybe people will be forced to have firearms. I think she used the word shotgun. Every one of you, including town employees, laughed at her. Based on what happened in May, do you really think you would be doing that again this evening? In closing, I have a quick question for you folks. Do any of you know Abby Williams or Libby German? Anybody know them? That's too bad, because Abby Williams and Libby German were the two teenagers that were killed on a trail similar to what you are forcing on us in February of 2017. To this day, as of this town council meeting, thank you. You aren't hearing me enough. No, I don't think you are. The individual still has not been found. It has been almost 2.5 years later. Would you conveniently forget about another individual if they came from this town? I really hope not. And I have every right to speak as loud as I need to, because you have no right to do this to our families and our properties.
Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Anybody else? Mr. Edmond?
Edmond, Joel Edmond, 63 Hollyberry Lane. No rail, no trail, and no thank you. Norton Park was really booming this last Saturday. I mean, really booming. So much so, the decibel level made my house windows vibrate. And my house is 10 houses southwest of the park. And that is not acceptable. An awful lot is expected of our wonderful, very active Norton Park. The active railroad does not pass through Norton Park, and neither should the rails to trails, but no rails, pass through Norton Park, with as many as 200,000 people per year from New England engulfing our municipal park. I am vehemently opposed to Alignment C or any other trail alignment through town that does not relate to the rails to trails concept. That also includes the wetlands, floodplains, Perrin Road, Franklin Street, possibly part of Camp Street, Pierce Street, Broad Street, and Hemingway Street and its surrounding roads and neighborhoods. I've often reiterated that it was poorly designed by outside town people who do not care that it negatively impacts our increasingly busy roadways and relatively peaceful, quiet neighborhoods. I question the suggestion that the trail gap will start at Town Line Road first before Southington tries to figure out what to do about their gap from Plantsville to Town Line Road. All this and much more for a free select few at a great cost and consternation forever for those affected, meaning Town of Plainville taxpayers, and safety for those on or near it. At this point, does anyone have any questions or comments? One other note, I just mentioned safety, an all-inclusive word. Enfield recently experienced an animal attack. I don't know the particulars, however, 2 weeks ago I personally was confronted by a really large, I'm almost done.
Okay.
Male black bear on Ledge Road. Apparently he was not that hungry because he did not try to attack and possibly eat me. There have been reports of bear attacks previously on the rails to trails north of Plainville. I think the wild animals really like the trail. Easy access to food and migration, some possibly rabid. I am not against using abandoned railways for our trail. I am adamantly opposed to any alternatives. For instance, the Gap.
Thank you.
No rail, no trail, and no thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Pete?
Pete Salamone, 176 Redstone Hill. Woodford Avenue is being milled and it will be repaved. It's on the alignment from Plainville to New Britain that you approved. I believe there's a possibility that we could paint or maybe look at some other alternatives, but paint bike paths on the sides of Woodford Avenue, which is very wide. I think it's important that we look and see, take this time to see if there's opportunities to do more than just repave and repaint Woodford Avenue the way it was. I'm not saying there should be painted bike paths. I'm not saying there shouldn't. I think that we need to have someone who is experienced look at that and see if there isn't a way that we, in the process of repaving and painting, can save some money and possibly get a bike path sooner.
Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Yes, sir.
David Spencer, 127 Milford Street Extension. The last meeting, I asked you if you would consider making a town council resolution concerning the tolls. Have you taken that up at all?
I actually talked to a few council members, and they did not feel they were interested in doing that, no.
Well, I'm sure most people have an opinion on it one way or the other.
I'm sure. I personally attended a rally in Hartford a couple of weeks ago opposing the tolls. So people are doing their own individual thing if they're interested to do that, but there's not an interest as far as the council as representing the town of Plainville to do that.
Can I take a show of hands? How many people oppose the tolls going through? Is that possible? Or
I don't think that's the right question to ask. It's not about oppose. Those shouldn't be the only two answers. That shouldn't be my, for you to ask oppose or support. I think there's many other options within that question.
Well, I think
for me to say one or the other. Speaker, sorry.
Well, did you get your answer,
I don't think
it's
a question that really should be putting you out so much.
It doesn't put me out.
Councilman.
I'm just saying I refuse to answer that question if those are my only two options.
Is there a third option?
I think there is many options on the table regarding tolls in Connecticut.
Okay, well, I only got 3 minutes, so I guess we can't get too far into it. But
I'm happy to have a conversation with you outside of here if you
okay.
want.
It seems like there's at least 4 votes against it, and I have no idea. Maybe we have a 5th with Mr. Nazo, and it doesn't affect anything except there is a tremendous amount of pressure on the legislators who wanted this and thought it would be a cakewalk getting it through, and a resolution from the council would not have any effect other than to increase the pressure to take this extraordinary tax burden off of commuters going to work in our state. So It looks like we have at least 4 votes. That's a majority, so.
We need 5.
Okay.
We need 5.
So, I mean, if you take it up and put a little bit more pressure, maybe it'll help. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Joanne?
Joanne Edmond, 166 West Main Street. For the record, for Carol, I strongly oppose Alignment C and any other alignment that would negatively impact Perron Road, Pier Street, Hemingway, Broad Street, Hemingway, into the park, onto the Mule Hall Trail, and just, it's nonsensical. And tonight, I would like to talk about the fact that we have trouble. We had trouble right here in River City because, and I would sincerely hope that in the future, if there is any indication, any whiff of any kind of a rumble, and that's what we had right here in River City. We had a rumble. And it could have been a lot worse than it was. It wasn't very pleasant as it was because a couple people got hurt. Citizens, taxpayers, citizens of Plainville could have been hurt. It's just, it was a nasty thing that happened. And I just think that we could have been a little bit nicer to the public, and the officials could have used the red alert system. They could have been more on the ball to make sure that everybody was informed, because it was a dangerous situation. And who's to say that these bikers couldn't have had guns in their saddlebags? We're just lucky they didn't. And heaven only knows where those bullets would have been shot off to, all around. And it was a dangerous situation. And no matter how many police cars were lined up, it just was not good. So I'm hoping that in the future, and it, as far as I'm concerned, it was somewhat of a cover-up. Not having it in the paper or the press coming, on it right away. It was basically a cover-up. And it's all because, I think, of the trail situation. And you know that if there's any trouble, if we have a trail, that's exactly where they're going to head, right down that trail. It's going to be hard to follow them. I don't think we have any police on motorcycles. And certainly patrol cars aren't going to be able to go down any kind of trail path. So it's not a good idea that we have this trail coming. We just have to, I hope you will stop it. And
thank you.
It's, there's something else I wanted to say, but I don't have notes again.
Oh.
And what I want to end up with is we do have a crisis at the border. And this is for Mr. Wazorko.
And we can agree to disagree.
Yeah. We do have a crisis at the border.
I'm more worried about ports of entry myself.
I'm worried about it.
That's okay.
Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Thanks, Joanne. Yes, sir. No, I'm next. Thank you.
Dave Albert, 56 Hollybear Lane. I really wasn't going to speak, but, and it's been 39 years, I think, since I did an audit on a municipality. But, I think what you're talking is immaterial, but you definitely cannot do 1 year to the next. But, like I said, it's probably immaterial, but I'd be all for it if you would just vote on it and say it's okay. So that, because the people are voting on one budget, right? And then For them to say, no, we got an excess here, we're going to apply it to another one, it kind of circumvents the whole spirit of the budget. And especially in this case where the town's going to save money. So why not do it, right? So but I'd be on board if you had some type of appropriation or okay from the town council. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Anybody else? Okay, thank you for your input. Moving on through our agenda, we do not have any old business items, but we do have a few new business items to vote on this evening. So may I have a motion for item number 1, please?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to establish a public hearing on Monday, June 17th at 7 o'clock in the Municipal Center to hear public comment on an ordinance entitled Ordinance Establishing Fourth Quarter Transfers for Fiscal Year Ending June 30th, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 2, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to establish a public hearing on Monday, June 17th at 7 o'clock in the Municipal Center to hear public comment on additional appropriations for the 2019 fiscal year budget.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 3?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to establish a public hearing on Monday, June 17th at 7 o'clock in the Municipal Center to hear public comment on an ordinance entitled Illicit Discharge and Stormwater Connection Ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Keep going.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve the revenue collector's suspense list.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, one more.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve the tax refunds is listed on the addendum.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for that. Mr. Lee, do we have any other discussions of interest this evening?
Just one item with respect to Woodford Avenue and the work that's being done by the DOT. The DOT it's a DOT project. They are looking into whether they're going to add any bike lane striping for that. So they are looking into that. That route certainly hasn't been approved by the town council, that alignment at this point in time, but there were some requests made by citizens with respect to that, and they although it's late in the game, they did say they would take a look at that to see if that was something that was possible. So.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have a question for the town manager. Is it okay?
Of course.
Robert, was there any specific reason why red alert was not used on the night of the bike incident?
Yes, this was a conscious decision that was made by Chief Catania. The situation was controlled in a relatively short period of time, and to set out a red alert just to say that everything's under control, in his opinion, didn't make sense. If it was an ongoing problem, that created a situation in the neighborhood, continuing situation in the neighborhood, he would have sent out a red, a code red. But given the fact that it was controlled, that people were leaving, that in his opinion, he felt that it would just get people just more concerned about something that was already over with.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
And on the same note, that case is still ongoing, correct, with the commission that it's being reviewed? Is it the Liquor Control Commission that is reviewing the case, or?
Yes, they
another
suspended the liquor license, and they're still closed. They had a hearing last week, and they haven't made a decision. I'm not quite sure where it's going, but they're closed for the time being.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else? We're all set?
That's all I have.
Okay. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to move into executive session for a litigation matter.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.